What Isaiah Thomas did in the 2017 season is one of the most insane things we've seen in the NBA over the last decade. Now, we've had a lot of things happen in the league over these last 10 years. Obviously, we got through the Golden State Warriors dynasty. Then there was LeBron's 2016 finals victory with Cleveland. We even got to see Steph Curry completely shift the way basketball is played. Then there was Russell Westbrook and James Harden both breaking countless triple-double records. And even now, we've got this entire Victor Wembanyama thing happening. So many insane storylines occurred during this period, and I really think Isaiah's run in 2016 got completely overshadowed, which kind of sucks because, to be completely honest, we may never see something quite like it in the NBA in a long time. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. In 2015, Isaiah was traded from Phoenix to Boston in a midseason exchange for Marcus Thornton in a 2016 first-round pick after having some solid seasons as a King. This was the second time Thomas was traded in a year after having some solid seasons in Sacramento, including a 20-point-per-game season the year before getting traded. And Thomas's first appearance with Boston came in the second half of that 2014-15 season, and it was pretty damn good. He averaged 19 points per game coming off the bench and ended second in Sixth Man of the Year voting. From there, he went on an absolute tear in his first full season with the C's, being named as an Eastern Conference All-Star reserve while averaging 22 points and 6 assists. At that point, he became the lowest draft pick in NBA history to be named as an All-Star and tied Calvin Murphy as the shortest player ever to be selected as a participant for the game. He led Boston to the playoffs as the 5th seed, but they ultimately lost in the first round to the higher-seeded Hawks in 6 games. But nonetheless, at this point, IT had established himself as a legitimate first option for the first time in his career, doing it at 5'9". Now, let's stop here and think about that. At this time, the average NBA height was 6'6", which has generally been the trend over the last 40 years across the league. So the thing there is this. I don't think we've seen anybody physically defy the odds quite like this in basketball over the last 10 years and possibly ever. This man was not supposed to be hooping like this, especially shortly before most teams started really adopting the small ball philosophy. So even before 2017, IT was doing some insanely unheard of stuff. But let's get right back into what we're here for. So IT entered that 2017 season already proving himself as a legitimate star player. And to start the season off, he scored 20 or more points in 20 of the first 21 games of the season. And in December of that year, he dropped a then career high of 44 points against the Grizzlies and followed up later that month with a 52-point game, with 29 of his points coming in the fourth quarter. That set a Celtics franchise record for most points in a quarter and also became the 4th highest scoring performance in Celtics history. Through January, he averaged nearly 33 points per game, solidifying his spot as an East All-Star for the 2nd consecutive year. This season, he also set a Celtics franchise record for most consecutive games with a three-pointer, making it 50 straight, and he also became the 6th Celtic ever to score 2,000 points in a single season. All of this elite play led Boston to the top seed in the Eastern Conference, doing it without a second All-Star. Now going into the postseason, IT went ballistic. He started off with a first-round victory against the Chicago Bulls, even in the midst of a very difficult time for him as he lost his sister in a car accident. Rest in peace to China Thomas, and much respect to IT for being able to push through that. The Celtics were able to march through the second round after outing Chicago 4-2, setting up an Eastern Conference point guard battle between John Wall and the Wizards. Now let's think about who John Wall was at this point in time. He averaged 23 points and 10 assists on the season, and he was arguably the best point guard in the Eastern Conference. So it set up an amazing point guard duel through 7 games, with Wall averaging 25 and 10 during the series, but IT was even more impressive. He averaged 27 points and 7 assists on 45% shooting and 46% shooting from deep. This included an insane 53-point performance in Game 2, which is the 2nd highest scoring playoff performance in Celtics history. Boston won that series in 7, setting up a matchup against the defending champion Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, as we all know, this is where things sadly started to go downhill for IT. He suffered a major hip injury in Game 2 that ruled him out for the rest of the series, and Boston ultimately lost in 5 games. With the level IT in Boston was playing at, who knows what would have happened if he was able to stay healthy that entire series. And unfortunately, due to this injury, Isaiah was just not the same, and this led him to being traded to Cleveland in the offseason for Kyrie and sparked off a trend of him being bounced from team to team. But let's stop right here and focus on the positive. The amount of odds we saw IT defy and obstacles we saw him overcome through the first 6 seasons of his career were ridiculous. And he truly was the last player of his kind. Well under 6 feet tall, dominating as a primary scorer amongst giants. And with the direction the game is going in, with taller players taking on even more roles as primary playmakers and shot creators, GMs are going to feel less inclined to take a swing at players like IT. And even if they do end up making NBA rosters, coaches are going to be more reluctant to play guys under 6 feet for those same reasons. So the next NBA anomaly after Wemby would have to be a severely undersized player coming in and dominating, quite like we saw IT already do in his prime. Will we ever see it again? That remains a major question mark with the way the game is now. But that's exactly why I say what Isaiah did in 2017 cannot be forgotten amidst all the crazy NBA storylines we've seen since then.